Hello, welcome back. This is ProTailDev. We're back at the Harvest Mouse Game Jam. So this is the 5th day of the footage. I managed to get the footage quite short, but it was originally, I think, 4 hours or so. I think it was 4.5 hours I worked on this day. I didn't mention this before, but at the very end of the video of the very final day, I'll have quick stats of how long I spent on this game jam. You know, how much time was spent overall from testing to playing around and, you know, doing different things. So yeah, look forward to that. Right, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I did is I went into Blender to create a model for grass, because again, more vegetation for the environment. Now I'll cut through this fairly quickly because I've already showed Blender a few times now in this game jam and in the last couple of videos. But it's just a standard cube that I've extruded out and changed the vertices to make it look more like grass, and then I just duplicate it and rotate it a little bit, change some of the scaling of some of them to make a small patch, and then, like I said, give them different angles and things, and then just quickly duplicate them. And then I add a little bit of material to them. I think I used 3 different colours just to give a bit of variation. There we go. Put them on a bit of a slant, small little slant, and then I make a bunch of them, bunch of objects. Now here I went back into paint.net because I wanted a quick texture. I used the, I think it was crystal or something like that, effect to create a bit of a unique ground, and then I saved it and created, I think total it was 4 or 5 different colours that were for the ground, and then went into online to make a custom normal map. Now this is free, so it was easy for me to do, and then I can just import the image and then change them to see what I want. You can obviously see on the far right, the 3rd column, what it looks like with these normal maps and spectral maps. Then I imported them and then set them up right so that they can work correctly. They've got all the right information. Created the material. After that, I then created a custom ground as well for brown, which would be the soil. And then here we go, I'm adding in a little bit of dark green and lighter green to the vines. I bring in the material for brown as well to give it a bit more of a bit more depth to the textures, and then make it so that it's only slightly visible, so that it blends in but still is there. And I think it looks fine. Maybe it probably could have needed a little bit more of strengthening with the texture to make it more visible, but it doesn't really matter. Next, I created a prefab, so I created a normal game object, brought the mesh in, and then I would turn this into a prefab for the grass patches. As you can see at the bottom, what I'm doing, I was adding the meshes in, and then I created a prefab of them and then brought them into the scene to see what they look like. And I actually like the contrast of the brighter green against the darker green. I could have probably blended it a bit more, but I like contrast when it comes to those type of things. I thought it looked okay. So then I played it to see what it looks like, and I thought it looks okay. Now in the end, I did early on delete all of the grass just to get rid of it for now while I was testing, and I probably could have left it in, but I still didn't. At the time, I still didn't know how I wanted it to be placed, how much was going to be there. So the next thing I did was I wanted to be able to turn the wave spawner on and off during different trees, because I didn't want multiple spawners active. I only wanted 1 spawner per tree active. So that's what I'm doing. I want to get all of the reference to all of the spawners, and then I want to make sure they're all off at the very beginning, which I did. And then I add a sphere where the spawner object is going to be, just so I can see where the spawners are. In the end, I forgot to turn them off, which was a mistake before the end of the game jam, but that was okay. It just helped. I guess it helped the player know where they could come from. And so what I'm doing here is I believe I create multiple spawners as well, for, like I said, for different trees. So there'll be 5 spawners total. And then again, get a reference to these spawn points. And then I also had a 5th tree. Like I said, I made 5 spawners, so I wanted a 5th tree which would be at the final location the player's got to get to. Created all the different spawners and that have their own spawn points. And then made sure that all the settings were correct. So this would automatically turn them off, I believe. So here in the tree manager, this is where it's going to turn individual spawners on. So here we go, I'm turning the spawner 1 on. If it's already been claimed, if the tree's been claimed, but we're still on 0, we still haven't claimed any other trees, then this will start. I also changed the rotation speed for the mouse there as well, very quickly, very briefly. And here we go, I'm changing the trees. Now currently, I ended up I actually was accidentally deactivating certain trees, which I didn't want. I want the trees to stay there, so I just got rid of that code that I added. And then this is where I move on to the design of the path of trying to get up to the very top tree. And I spent quite a long time trying to add some scenery that you could basically jump onto. You know, so I'm kind of skipping through it. I do actually add a lot into this. I do a lot of testing that I've cut out of me trying to get from platform to platform. But here I am adding a path to it. Okay, and then we had a little bit of rotation and size script to our prefabs that we created for our trees, because originally I created them and then took them off for certain ones. And the reason why I've added them back is because I still wanted that difference. Now we're moving on to lighting and quality. So what I did there was I changed some settings in the quality, and then I'm changing some settings in the lighting to make the lighting better, because I wanted the scene to now look a little bit better. You know, we're on the 5th day now. We're almost, you know, pretty much halfway. So I wanted to make sure that everything was looking better. And we now move on to post-processing. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding in the volume and layer, and then adding in our own custom post-processing profile, setting it all up so it's all working, and you know, we've got the information, we can rely on that profile. So here I am setting it all up, making sure we're on the right layer for the camera. And then I start adding effects in. Now I'm not going to go over this in detail because so many other YouTubers have done it, and so many people have covered post-processing before, so you can always look that up. So I'm not going to go over the effects individually. I'm just cutting through them really quickly. So all I'm doing is I end up testing quite a lot of different looks, and I still wanted that kind of mystery, like dark feel to it. So here we go, I'm adding lots of different effects and I'm trying them out. So this was the first effect, kind of the first look I had, and then I play around with settings and spend a bit of time on it. You know, that one looked quite nice, but it didn't really have that bright spookiness, and I went for more of almost like a cartoonish brightness. And then went for a spooky, like darker, and I think I ended up picking that one because I wanted to do something with effects in a minute, which I'll show later. Next I wanted a custom skybox, so I made a custom skybox images, and then created a custom material that I used, and then increased the exposure and the rotation of it to see what it looked like. It looked quite interesting. So that was the skybox, and this is why I wanted the map to be a bit darker. So this is where I wanted to create some firefly effects and lighting for the islands. So here we are, just changing some particle effects to make some fireflies, changing the colour, the size, the speed, its movement, you know, its vanish. And then I add a bit of noise to make it move. Very straightforward. I play around with the noise quite a lot to see it. Obviously the footage is sped up, so remember that they're not moving as quick as they are in the footage. And then what I do is I add lights to them, and then I added a few materials and things just to make sure everything was correct. Changed the sorting as well to fix an issue, and it was working. I also changed how it appears as well, so how quickly it appears, on screen, and how quickly it vanishes, and make sure it's gradual but also stays in one place. And then there you go. So it looks quite nice, I think. I think it looks quite nice. So that was the day 5. We ended up with a bit of post-processing, and I didn't want to go over the top with post-processing because I could use things like fog and make it look and give ourselves some like sun rays, but I really didn't want to go that far with it, and I also didn't want to spend much time with post-processing. I just wanted to make it look slightly better. So yeah, I think day 5 is complete. Okay, we'll be moving on to day 6. See you next time.